Today's video is all about Manta Network. Explore ZK with the first and largest modular layer 2. Guys, today we're going to be doing a deep dive into this project, looking into some of the fundamentals such as the team, the tokenomics, utility, and the overall value proposition, trying to figure out whether this project has what it takes to make it to our portfolio for the next leg up into this bull run. Guys, let's talk about the news, let's analyze the charts, and let's strategize to capitalize. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mike, and let's get right into it, guys. If you're new to the channel, welcome. On the channel, we talk about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the altcoins, looking for opportunities. And the question is Manta Network an opportunity? Guys, today we're going to be doing a deep dive, looking into this project. We're going to be looking at some of the details behind what makes Manta Network bullish. What should we get bullish on? Are there areas of improvement that we can focus on? The good, the bad, and the ugly. Of course, an honest opinion with regards to what Manta Network is about. I'm going to be taking a retail investor approach, focusing on the project in such a way that we expect the retail investor to come in. They want to know what Manta Network is. We're going to be doing a bit of poking around to see if there's enough information provided to us by the team, ultimately by the white papers, by the documentation, by the website. So to basically check out if there's enough details here, enough information for us to get fundamentally bullish, right? We want to be able to educate the newcomers that come in, and we want to be able to get them fundamentally bullish on the fundamental details that are provided by the team. So this is very, very important, guys. We're going to be scraping through this website, scraping through the white papers, and getting our bearings around this project. Obviously, there's always much more in-depth research that you can be doing, but from a deep dive perspective, we're going to rely on some of the documentation here. Explore ZK with the first and largest modular layer 2. Now, I do feel like this is obviously a viable statement, but I feel like there's a lot more, right? I feel like this is almost undervalued or understated, let's put it that way. There's a lot more happening here because just from my research that I've done, I realized that this project in fact has a lot more depth than just being called a layer 2, given the fact that there's two blockchains, right? And we'll talk about all of that. We'll kind of try to get into those details, but at the same time trying to clarify when there's a dual system, whether it be dual token, which is not the case here, it's a dual chain system. There's a little bit of ambiguity here, especially if you're not familiar with what blockchain is all about, and then you start question, why do you even need two chains? And this is what I really want to kind of look into. Is there clarity here? So Manta Pacific is the first EVM equivalent ZK application platform that is scalable, secure through Celestia and Polygon. Okay, so this is very important, guys, because usually on the channel I look for strategic partnerships, but as I'm doing deep dives, as I've been doing these deep dives for a good while now. By the way, guys, I release one every single week. So at this point, I have a good collection of deep dives, and I'm noticing trends. And this is one of the good things about doing research, is you can notice trends. Now, the trend is that the word partnership has become very vague and very open. And in this case, that's very important. But if that's going to be the case, I'm going to have to actually change my definition as to what a partnership is, right? I usually traditionally think of partnerships as being a strategic thing, right? But in this case, it is a strategic thing. But Celestia, Polygon, OP, they use the OP stack and the Polkadot stack, which is we're going to talk about in a second. Are they necessarily partners, or are they just leveraging the technology that exists from these projects and using them to make a modular layer 2? And very viable relationships here, very bullish relationships here, but are they strategic partnerships per se? And this is where I really want to focus on here, is that I feel like I need to broaden my horizon as to how I basically define partnerships and call them relationships. I think these are very healthy and good relationships for the use case that they're providing to the project, which is very interesting. We're going to talk about this in a little bit more detail, because because the layer 2 that we're speaking of is called Pacific, right? The Manta Pacific mainnet is now live, and it has its own value proposition in comparison to Manta Atlantic. And we're going to kind of try to make sure that we define the two and their differences and their similarities and so on. And this way we can get familiar with their dual blockchain system. Let's continue going down. Obviously, guys, I got some tabs open that we're going to have to go through. I got a few details that I want to go through with you guys, but we're going to take it bit by bit and kind of go through. I like this diagram. Okay, I do like this diagram, and this diagram is, available to us in many ways on the white papers, on many forms of documentation. We see them on blog posts. So this diagram actually does a really good job. So we're gonna kind of revisit this in a second. Modularity for low gas fees. Obviously, they leverage see, I like the fact that they say they leverage Celestia. Not that they're necessarily partners, right? They're using the Celestia stack to kind of improve the modularness and use what Celestia has to offer to improve what they are doing, so to build on top of it. So that's a good Manta Pacific delivers blazing fast infrastructure at the fraction of the cost, right? So this is very important to understand that they're using other technologies, and in a way it sounds like a partnership, right? Or there's a relationship here. And if you look here, you can kind of make sense of what this is. We're going to get back to this diagram once we get into the white papers. I think it's very viable. I just want to scrape through the website to see where we should be going. So we're going to get here. We're going to go here. Core features, low fees, developer friendly, app agnostic. So I like that they're not really saying chain agnostic here at the moment, which is great, because really that is very, very broad, meaning that it can go on any chain. But at this current moment, what they're talking about is saying Manta's private identity tools across chains and in Web 2 environments include mobile apps. Manta SDK proof keys offer development-friendly solutions for integrating on-chain identity with just few lines of code. So really, what they're trying to do is make some flexibility. You notice that the tech stack that we've seen before above, there's EVM compatibility here, and it starts to open up, the horizon. You also saw the other chain basically become it is a Polkadot parachain, which also increases that flexibility across different networks, which is also very important. We see the cross-chain capabilities becoming a key feature going forward with a lot of blockchains, right? The interoperability concept. So I'm glad to see that they're focused on interoperability. They're focusing on EVM compatibility, given the fact that Solidity is the biggest language out there, and Ethereum being the largest ecosystem. I'm glad to see that they realize that they need to basically embrace other technologies and integrate them into their own and leverage them, as they say. Celestia and a modified OP optimism stack to deliver cutting-edge technological infrastructure. So their infrastructure integrates other existing stacks that obviously have a lot of success. So this is good, right? Go low gas fees and so on. So, and ZK applications. And then we also have Polygon, which we're going to talk about there, because they introduced the Polygon ZK as well. So there's a lot of ZK, and for those of you that don't know what ZK means, it's zero knowledge, right? The zero knowledge proof concept allows a layer of privacy, and so they do hinge significantly around privacy while still growing an ecosystem that is modular, scalable, low gas fees, and of course this is something that a lot of layer ones that are coming out are trying to achieve, right? This is the battle of layer ones right now, definitely. Non-invasive compliance, okay, ZK, no KYC. On-chain KYC is possible with a passport, right? But definitely only allowing certain information to be allowed to be transferred to different applications. So being able to control the amount of data that you share on-chain, even if you're going to do KYC, at least you can agree to terms as to how much detail you want to give to an application for them to get to know, because KYC, know your customer, how much do you want them to know, right? So in this case, a non-invasive compliance, you are able to basically lay out your terms as to how much privacy you do want. And this is another typical feature across many privacy layers. So this is a good thing. A growing ecosystem. I'm glad to see that the ecosystem is, definitely grown. And I like to see that the ecosystem a lot of the applications, although they are built and you are on Manta, of course, they're also on other chains, obviously because of the EVM compatibility. But in addition to that, they stand alone, right? Their tech stack uses Manta, no doubt, but as far as their implementation of DPIN and implementation of other aspects within the Web3, we're gonna have to look into those apps individually, right? In this case, Manta doesn't offer the DPIN or any type of backend infrastructure, AWS or anything like that. They're not really involved in that case, which puts the pressure on the applications to maintain standards. So we'll take a look at that. I'm not going to get into deep dives within their ecosystem, but we'll look at their ecosystem and see what they got going on, because there's a bit of application happening there at the current moment. Bridge your USDC. Okay, there's a bridge, obviously, because there's two chains, so they're going to have to provide that facility for the two chains to communicate, and bridges are obviously the way it's done in the current moment. Obviously, a lot of people, when they see bridge, they start to think vulnerability, but we've seen the bridges come a long way, where we're seeing less and less exploit with regards to bridges. So not bad of a scenario. Build ZK app on Pacific. So we're going to talk about the Pacific and of course the Atlantic in a second. You can see the TVL is pretty good, and transaction on chains ecosystem, it's been doing very, very well in the last little while. It is a larger cap all of a sudden as far as its market cap. It's definitely up there. However, there is some possible growth here as an ecosystem project for it to actually do well. And as we see capital get back into the market for the next move to the upside, we could see a lot of capital get into some of these other layer ones. They're trying to compete with the top dog, of course, Ethereum. Let's keep on going down. Ecosystem products, there's a lot happening. Ecosystem highlights, you see a layer 0, we got a couple others, Manta CDFI, Uniswap, obviously because it's EVM compatible, you're going to get the EVM chain on Uniswap. You're going to be able to trade, and you can keep on going. We're going to talk about the ecosystem. You have a dedicated page for ecosystem and native projects, of course, ones that are built by the actual Manta Network team, the developers themselves. This is not bad. We got a lot happening here, a lot. Ecosystem, I have this tab open already. We're going to get into that in a second. Where are we today? Roadmap, I have this open already, so we're going to take a look at that. I'm already prepared with what I want to show you guys, because the website is fairly laid out fairly well. You got to admit, like, so far we can get everything that we need to get fundamentally bullish, and that gets me very interested because they're prepared for retail investors, right? There's no ambiguity here so far, right? We can look at the roadmap, where they're going. Where's human capital going to be spent? Where is the ecosystem? Like, what are they building? Who's building? What's being built? What is the utility? The token, we're going to get into the tokenomics and overall what the utility, because when I refer to utility, I mean the utility of the token. What is the token going to be used for? It's got to be used for application-based cases, right? So when I refer to utility, it's like, this is why I always make that reference. If there's an ecosystem and there's ecosystem growth, the utility of the coin or the token will obviously increase, right? Because then there's use case, there's things to use it with, right? So we want to see a healthy ecosystem, and we want to give that ecosystem an opportunity to integrate the token for it to have utility. And this is one thing that I really want to see is in applications, obviously, and we're going to have to if you're interested in the ecosystem, you're going to have to dig deep into each one of those projects, because those projects take their own implementation and own approach into their own Web3 delivery, right? So although this is let's say the layer 1, or even the layer 1, or if you want to call it the layer 2, because it is a layer 1 and a layer 2 at the same time. Again, guys, we'll get into that. Events around the world, they're all over the place, which is great. At this point, I would love to see some links with regards to the team, and unfortunately there's nothing here on the website that is directly directing me into that direction. We have a Telegram, we have a Discord. Telegram is just notifications only, unfortunately. The Discord, I was been on the Discord for the last little while, not much activity, to be honest, not much team member activity, unfortunate, not much happening there. I think I would conclude to say that the overall communication or the marketing needs to be improved a little bit there. I think if you're going to have a Discord, and especially if your Telegram is going to be announcement only, and I truly prefer Discord over Telegram. That's just my opinion. That's just my preference. Just because it is, you're able to organize your conversations a lot better. I feel like if you're gonna have a Discord, you should have a team member on there, actively contributing to conversations and basically answering questions. And for me, that was one of my things. I did have somebody that was within the community, not a team member, that was willing to answer some of my questions, but I was lucky that I didn't have many. Why? Because the Manta team, with regards to their documentation, provided a lot of information. So that's a good thing, right? We're talking about good, the bad, and the ugly, and we're trying to just honestly look at the facts of what is being presented to here to us on the website. First of all, right? First, we got some on-chain data. If you want to get into that, I'm not going to get into that too much detail. That for me is beyond. Remember, we're focusing on the retail investor, right? So we're not looking on-chain. We do know that there's a lot of growth here with regards to its ecosystem, and for me, eventually, even if on-chain it's not picking up, eventually, as the ecosystem grows, we should see utility and see some on-chain activity. Even though I did take a peek into this, I'll be honest, the on-chain activity is decent. Okay, it is decent. So let's move on. Let's see, white paper. Let's jump right into this. So I told you that we would touch base again on this diagram, and the reason why is that there's a dual chain system here: Manta Pacific, and then there's Manta Atlantic. Manta in general is cross-chain. In this case, it can go on both chains. Manta Pacific is a layer 2. It's an L2 ecosystem built on Ethereum, and for that reason, it is EVM compatible. So that's a very important thing to understand. It is also ZK, right? Zero knowledge. Super bullish in that perspective. In my opinion, that's a very good thing. So provides a scalable and inexpensive gas fee environment for ZK applications to be deployed simply by using Solidity. So again, the language that is being used by Ethereum is Solidity, and the EVM, which is the Ethereum virtual machine, only understands Solidity as a programming language. So this is a really a very important thing, because this now is being a competitor to other layer 2s, right? Other layer 2s like Polygon or Optimism and Arbitrum and many others. This is what they are trying to basically become, is a competitor to those projects. Manta Atlantic, on the other hand, is a layer 1, so it's its own blockchain, the fastest ZK L1 chain on Polkadot. So the relationship with Polkadot is important, but it's still not that important. And you're probably asking, why could it be a layer 1 and still be on Polkadot? Okay, so it brings compatible identities and credentials to Web3 through ZK-SBTS. Okay, so really, let's get back to the Polkadot concept. And I think this diagram does a really good job from a visual perspective. At the end of the day, what we have to understand is that Polkadot has the ability to be considered a base layer or a layer 0. Okay, and there's something called basically a parachain. So in this case, I would say Manta Atlantic is a parachain, and it's because it uses the Polkadot substrate, which is the base layer. Think of it as a template. If you wanted to create a layer 1, Polkadot offers you a template to easily create a layer 1 and customize that layer 1 for your likings, whatever you want to achieve. And that's Polkadot's major value proposition, is that it allows people, individuals, programmers, developers to create their own blockchain on top of Polkadot, but using Polkadot's template. Okay, so that's the best, or boilerplate, whatever you want to consider it. So at the end of the day, it's still a layer 1. It just uses Polkadot's structure as to how it creates its blockchain. So Manta Atlantic is a layer 1. It's a universal circuits. It's a parachain, of course, on Polkadot. And at the end of the day, it offers ZK through payments, KYC, ZK SBT. So it still embraces the zero knowledge proof concept on its layer. Okay, so that's important. Then we go on to the other blockchain. And again, we're talking about the difference between Manta Pacific, right, which is EVM compatible, and Manta Atlantic, which is the layer 1, which is this one here, which is Atlantic. Pacific, which is this one right here, is a little bit different, right? It has Celestia DA. It has the optimistic rollup, so the ZK EVM. So it's optimist. It uses the OP stack, and it uses the Celestia stack. It uses the Ethereum boilerplate or template to create its layer 2s, right? It's a layer 2 on Ethereum, so it's able to kind of like scale up and provide all those improvements that we need to make a faster, cheaper transaction. So just to make it simple for those of you that are new and trying to really figure out what Manta is, it's just a matter of becoming a better Ethereum, right? In this case, you're still within the confines of the EVM, the virtual machine, but nonetheless you're considered a layer 2, and you can bring other value propositions. In this case, they still focus on ZK. So again, ZK DeFi, ZK NFTs, ZK Bridge, ZK Gaming, ZK this and that. So you can see that there's two chains here that ultimately kind of work side by side. But I'm curious as to, is there a day or an event where we just focus on the layer 1, right? Do we really need this layer 2, right? If the layer 1 does a great job and so on, and this is where we got to kind of see where this goes going forward. The roadmap, the future is very bright here for the crypto space. So Manta Network created a team of experienced founders from prestigious institutes, including Harvard, MIT, and previous developers on Algorand. Okay, so we're going to talk about the team in a second, of course. Manta Network has received investments from top Web3 investment funds, including Binance Labs, Polychain Capital. Now, it's up to you if you feel like this is a good thing or a bad thing. I think the Binance thing is not a bad scenario, where Polychain Capital, in my opinion, seems to be more like a VC without much opportunity. Whereas with Binance Labs, if you are, even though it's almost like a VC as well, at least you have the promise to get listed. And that's a very important thing if you want to get that exposure to the market. So bullish right there. Okay, pretty good. And I think that's about it. We got, blockchain accelerators. Manta Network proposed bringing a next generation Web3 users to ZK applications. Okay, good stuff there. Let's move on. Now, if you want to get into more detail as to what these are, there's obviously a lot more, information about the two chains. This is layer 2, non-invasive compliance, growing ecosystem. I think I basically covered the big picture idea here. EVM layer 2, like if you go through this and you skim through this, you'll see what I mean. It's just basically repeating more detail into what I already explained. So gas fees, development friendly, of course, Solidity only relying on one language. You can able to make decentralized applications, DeFi and social applications on chain, just a few lines of code. Okay, and you get what I mean. So now if we go on to layer 1, this is where I felt like, yes, it uses an UTXO model, privacy, ZK, again, a lot of that. But what is the major reason why I walk away, when I walk away from reading all this, what is the major reason for having both chains? And that for me is an important thing, right? What's the purpose of having both? I feel like that's where the documentation should have, highlighted a little bit more of that conversation, is what's the purpose of having both? Why not just have one? Now, as a layer 2, obviously we have the benefits for ecosystem growth, being EVM compatible. As a layer 1, you don't have to worry about that. But as the layer 2 does well and ecosystem growth, definitely picks up, with the bridge and all that, eventually could we bridge over to the layer 1 and forget the layer 2? You get what I mean? So I feel like that might be something that, be in the works type of thing. But again, a little bit more info would be good as far as the relationship between the layer 2 and the layer 1. Now, the Manta token, right? So back to this, they really do appreciate this graphic here. Again, the both chains and more of a description, again, very loosely, but we went through it in a bit of detail, and they talk about some tokenomics here. So the ticker Manta, the ticker is an ERC20 for the layer 2, and the native token, of course, we know it's native, it's Manta, but they have the same ticker. And in total, there's a $1 billion total supply, max supply. There's no more than that. So we know that there's control over the circulation. Inflation schedule over time, we're going to get a 2% yearly minting rate from January 30th, 2024. So we're going to see some tokens enter the market. Of course, it's all backed, all emission schedule is there, vesting schedule, we have token distribution, we got everything we need to get bullish here. with regards to tokenomics, and that's what I call well documented information for research. Okay, that for me is really, really good. Let's keep on going now. Down we can see there's some stuff that we might want to look into. Governance. So just by you seeing that word there, we might as well stop and say there is a DAO. Okay, so you can hold, stake, whatever the case is. As long as you're a holder, you can participate in governance and decision making on Manta Pacific and Manta Atlantic. So that is one of the utilities of Manta, is being able to vote for changes, for any decision making that needs to be done, for any spending that needs to be done. And again, we'll talk about all of this as we go through some of the documentation. Staking, of course, that's another utility. You can stake and get rewards. Delegation, okay, yeah, secure the network. Of course, you're holding and staking, you're there to secure the network. Very typical utility. Network fees, you pay your network fees with Manta and pay transaction fees, and you get reduced fees if you are a holder and a staker and so on. So these are obviously utility, that's part of the utility. Native liquidity and collateral. Manta token can be used in the Manta ecosystem within their marketplaces as a form of a medium of exchange. So this is also its utility. It's a currency as well. So there's a lot to be said here, because as they're a layer one, they're building an ecosystem, and they want the Manta token to be a one-stop shop for every transaction. Everything that happens within the ecosystem is going to be dealt with Manta, and you're going to be rewarded for dealing with Manta. That's good. So you can get through all the utility, guys. Obviously, token holder benefits from redeployment of revenue share. That's what I'm getting. Gas savings from the modular approach from Celestia. Sure, you get that is a opportunity. Sequencer revenue and DA gas fee savings. So a lot of savings by being partaking, which is of course a value proposition. Builders and contributors, basically they get access to markets, and that allows them to buy and sell and basically earn off of some of their contributions, maybe their applications or whatever the case is. A symbiotic relationship emerges, as well as a funded ecosystem attracting builders. Guys, I'm going to let you know, they do put a lot of emphasis, a decent amount of emphasis on ecosystem growth by having a fund for that type of growth. And again, I appreciate the ecosystem growth, and as I mentioned before, good ecosystem growth, it translates to overall healthy utility for the token, right? That's what basically we want to see. And as long as that ecosystem embraces Web3 to the fullest, and decentralization and all that kind of good stuff, and privacy and all of that, which we know so far privacy is one of the main agendas, we could definitely see some good utility here. So good stuff there. Revenue is distributed to the ecosystem. So again, some of the revenue gets recycled back into the ecosystem, incentivizing and fostering innovation and good public funding for these projects to be able to thrive on the network. These are very important things for long-term sustainability. Community members, of course, ongoing ecosystem community incentives. So you can see that so far, a lot of the token of utility in Pacific is focused on ecosystem growth. Now, when you go to Atlantic, it's a little bit more traditional, right? So we're talking about transaction and contract usage fees, right? That's how you're going to use Manta. Network usage, 72% of the fees are going to be put and allocated to the ecosystem. 18% goes to treasury. 10% gets distributed amongst the stakers. So this is really important here, guys, because you can see that a lot of the revenue that's going to be generated here is going to be redistributed back into the ecosystem. Medium of exchange, as we mentioned, as a token, medium of exchange is important. It's a currency as well. Governance rights, again, network security of staking secures the network and all of that. Network allocates an annual 2% of total issuance to stakers. So you're gonna, 2% of the tokens that get released are going to be issued to stakers as a reward. So we see a lot of good utility. We see a lot of possibility here as to why you want to be a holder. Okay, and of course, back to the main perspective is utility, the marketplace, the ability to use the applications that are going to be built. This is important. You need those gas fees, and even though they're going to be very, very small, you still need to be able to transact on chain, right? So And perfect stuff here so far. Manta token allocation. This is where things get a little bit, I would say, complex, which I don't appreciate when you get a lot of, different parts. Like, I wish it was a lot more simplified, but at least it's clear. At least it's clear. It's honest, straightforward. 1 billion Manta tokens, and they're going to be distributed amongst these categories outlined in this table. You can see that we have private investors. Okay, 13% give or take to private investors. Let's get the issues out of the way, right? We talk about private investors, we're talking about venture capitalists, we're talking about people that got in early, maybe got in at a discount, and so on and so forth. So this is what we really have to pay attention to, is the early stakeholders in general. Early stakeholders include private investors, maybe not so much the public investors, but yeah, I would say perhaps public investors, strategic investors, of course, like these are early investors, institutional investors. Again, we're talking about investors that got in early, and then the airdrop early. Everybody that got in early into this project would be considered an early stakeholder, somebody that has a stake into this project doing very well. Now, if you came in later as a retail, yes, you do have a stake, but these individuals got in at a favorable moment before it went, perhaps very mainstream, before it became such a large cap. So these individuals, have some, let's say, motivation to see this project do well. Now, just keep in mind, I know I'm sounding negative here, but the reality is that all these projects, all these categories are basically controlled by a distribution schedule, an emission schedule, vesting schedule. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a second. Now, we also have the team, again, early stakeholder, advisor, another early stakeholder. And then we start to get to the things that make us bullish, right? We have the ecosystem. That makes me super bullish. That's 22%, 21%, 21.19%. That for me is good. I like to see emphasis on the ecosystem growth. The foundation treasury, that's great too. And at least we know it's behind the DAO. You vote. This is the way they're going to spend the money, right? That's or the liquidity. This is what makes decentralization as an organization a little bit better, right? As an organization, we want to see organizations take on the decentralized autonomous organization, which is the DAO, because then we can rely on a democratic process to make critical decisions rather than one individual that has all the power to basically call shots. Now, we can have a lot of faith in that individual based on their history, their work experience, and so on and so forth, but the word faith means it's a faith-based system, and Web3 is not a faith-based system. Web3 is a system where we have an autonomous contract that works without faith. It's factual, it's hard-coded, it's conditional, and this is what I like when I see treasury or any treasury behind the DAO. Now, what I do question is that why couldn't some of the ecosystem, funds also be put in the treasury? I think that this is a little bit of an area of ambiguity. Does the ecosystem fund also get voted on by the treasury? And that's very important to me, because again, who's going to call the shots as how the ecosystem funds are going to be distributed? And then you have the new paradigm, the airdrop to the next airdrop for the next layer or the next level of the project, 6.5%. So what we're really talking about, I would say a good 50% of the tokens are attributed or allocated to early stakeholders. How does that make you feel? Right now, what we can say is we have a vesting schedule. So the good part is that although those are early stakeholders, they are going to get their tokens released to them slow and steadily, right? They're not going to come out all at once, and that's good because then you don't risk dilution. The more that enter in circulation all at once, the more sell pressure we get on the token, and then the price falls. But in this case, they're going to be released slow and steadily. You can see the distribution amount. You can see the staking schedule, 12-month cliff, for example, the private round, 12-month cliff. The distribution will be linear over the subsequent 36 months. So they're going to be getting a bit by bit over a few years, and ultimately eventually get fully diluted, and they'll get all the private round investors will get their share. And if you go through all of them, they're pretty much the same, except the ones that say 100% released at TGE. TGE, Binance Launch Pool, linear release over 72 months for the foundation, new paradigm drop, 50 million initial release at TGE. You can see what I mean, like the team, 18-month cliff, so slightly over a year, and then all of a sudden they're going to get their linear release over 48 months. Now, a lot of people do frown upon seeing the team get paid, but guys, at the end of the day, the team needs to eat. They need some liquidity. They are working hard to build this thing. There's developers behind the scenes. There's a lot of support behind the scenes that need to have, some liquidity over time. So we have to understand, and it's only 10%. I think that's fair enough to say, to get them motivated and keep that incentive. Yes, it's not a completely fair launch. I understand. And there was a point in time where, that was the buzzword, where we wanted all projects to be fair launch. But the reality is, we've seen the results of being purely fair launch is that you don't get anything happening. Right? You don't get anything because there's not enough liquidity to invest in marketing or invest in getting listed or anything like that. You need capital. You need this capital to be invested within, different aspects of the projects. But at least they're backed by a clear vesting schedule where the tokens are going to be released over a certain amount of time. And feel free to check this out. While we're on this, okay, I want to just kind of show you that the vesting schedule, we're going to get the linear unlock for the private round very soon. I would say in about 6 months or so. I think it's in about the new year, in January, more or less, leading into 2025. We're going to start getting some of the unlocks for the team, and a little bit later than that, of course, in July next summer. And you can see that back now in January in the 2025, we're going to get, the strategic investors and some of the institutional investors. And if you start looking at it as from a chart perspective, you can see that right around this level is where we start to get a lot of the unlocks happening, right around here. So that means, like, right around January, the new year, we should start to see, some of these tokens get released. Now, is that going to be a threat? Well, the reality is that at least it's progressive, slow and steady. They're going to be released. And we have to understand that as long as demand outperforms supply, we should be okay into this level. My major concern is when we start to see, in general, crypto in general, not demand as much. What I'm speaking about is a bear market. Okay, right now we are preparing for a continuation to the upside for the bull run. We're waiting for altcoins such as Manta to wake up and see demand into, for the token, whether it be purely speculative or just from a trading perspective, whatever the case may be. Ultimately, the question is the demand going to outperform the supply? And are these individuals during a bull run, during the next leg up, are they going to be selling? I believe that once we start to see the market get frothy at the top, these individuals most likely will sell and be prepared for that sell pressure. So in conclusion, what I'm saying is these projects, such as these new layer ones or new projects that have these vesting schedules that are getting to become very aggressive as we lead to the top of the bull run, guys, you need to take profit. You need to take profit. The reason being is that all these other early stakeholders will be taking profit at the top of the bull run. And it's not because they're bearish. It's because the reality is altcoins come down significantly during a bear market, right? They can come down 80 to 90, maybe slightly more %, which means that in the bear market, we could reaccumulate, and we can reaccumulate much more based on the fact that, we're going to get a bit of sell pressure. They're not going to hodl through. VCs do not hodl through. Even team members, the reality is there's programmers that, I'm not saying they're going to dump on the market, but we have to understand the nature of the game. Look at previous cycles. If in previous cycles, bear markets are ruthless. So what we have to understand is that these individuals will be given tokens over the next little while during the rise of the bull run, if if it continues. But once the froth begins, they will be taking profits, and so should you. All right, guys. So that's my take. A little bit of tokenomics, a little bit of market analysis here at the same time, so we can understand perspective. This is not a multi-cycle hold, in my opinion. It could be a multi-cycle accumulator. In the bear market, next bear market, we will be accumulating once again, but take profit. All right, let's move on. Let's move back to some of the documentation. Let's see if I can pick up exactly where we left off. Pretty good stuff here. Manta interoperability. Manta tokens launch on Manta Atlantic, so they talk about that duality between both chains. Tokens allocated on airdrops, if you want more information on that. And of course, this chart right here that I just gave you on that third-party website, it's a very similar scenario. You can see that we start to pick up some of the inflow of tokens in the new year, but ultimately I don't think they're going to be selling until we see the top of the bull run. There's no incentive right now to start selling, given that the overall sentiment is that we're going to get bullish here. So there's a lot of more detail within each category. We're talking about the reward structure, we're talking about the vesting schedule, the cliff, the release, the this and the that. Guys, go into detail, read this over as much as you feel, so that you can get secure into your investment. There's a lot of information here that this video would be 5 hours long if I went through all of this detail, but I appreciate the clarity. Okay, we got to give them kudos for that. Clarity is important. All right, let's move on. We got a lot of other things on here on the side. We got Manta Pacific Network, if you want to know all that, building on Manta, and we got the bridge again. A bridge, being able to join those two networks together. We got tools in order to oracles that there's on ramps. There's a lot to be said here within this project, and I appreciate it because it provides the clarity. The nodes. What else do we have? Deploy your own app. The roadmap. Let's jump right into here. Now, the roadmap is interesting because I don't think that even this, although the roadmap is here, this is very vague. I get it. And at least they have a vague, roadmap, but they also have a very detailed one on the website, which we'll talk about in a second. But at least you can see that they highlight the stages for clarity. Stage 1, Manta Pacific. Stage 2, Manta Pacific. Again, Manta Pacific. Again, Manta Pacific. Guys, they've achieved it. Right? This needs to be updated. I get it. This Manta Pacific is done. It's our mainnet is already done. They at least some of this information is valid, but it needs to be updated because what are they working on next? And based on that, I feel like we should get into the roadmap, okay? Because the rest of it is very technical, nodes and bridges, and technical aspects behind tutorials on how to get involved and so far and so forth. Feel free to check that technical computer science stuff. Guys, this is not the perspective here because the majority of us don't know much about computer science. So we just got to leave that be. Now, let's start here. Let's talk about some of the tabs that I got here. PR, community. This is the about page. Again, I went through this. I wish they had some information with regards to their team. Unfortunately, nothing here. Okay. And we'll talk about the team because I was able to dig up some. We're going to be bouncing around a little bit with some of these tabs. This is the foundation. You can see that they have some funds allocated to the foundation, which is good. Again, ecosystem growth. They have hackathons and grants and investments into the ecosystem. That's really interesting. And then we go on forward and we can look at, let's keep this for a second, the ecosystem itself. So they have a pretty interesting system here to get you to navigate the ecosystem. We can remove this tab and it removes all of them, all the different projects, and you can click on different projects. For example, different narratives. For example, if you want to do gaming and metaverse, you click that and you get all the native gaming and metaverse projects that they have built, which is pretty cool. Now, what I want to say is, I think it's a viable thing that we understand that we need to do deep dives on individual projects as well. So if you're bullish, for example, on Bingo 0x, okay, I would suggest that you go figure out exactly how that's built, how they leverage the tech stack, what do they, how do they use DePIN or decentralized storage, or what are they doing? Like, what kind of applications do they have, basically running to make it Web3? And this is very viable because we're seeing projects nowadays come out and they're not really completely embracing Web3 completely. And for me, that's very important. We got to do deep dives on the projects that are being built on the layer 1s, or even in this case sometimes even on the L2s. So very interesting here, a very interesting approach for researching the different projects. And you can do the Atlantic ecosystem. You can see we got Bitfrost and Moonbeam and Fala. You got lots of good projects here. And you can go on to media and education. There's a lot. Now, if we go back to all, you can get all of them happening, and we can look at the fact that they got a lot going on. Okay, got a Cointelegraph is involved. Now, again, it's not necessarily a project, but what I do see here, and I'm going to kind of do this again, I do see research partners. Interesting. Okay, so these are partners to a degree, relationships. I'm going to keep that very broad because, again, the word partner nowadays has been used very, very loosely. And again, they also have accelerators. That could be a partner. Auditors. Okay, they are auditors involved. Are they audited? Certec certification, and so many others. So that's pretty good. And then the identity narrative, the social narrative, and so on and so forth. So a lot happening here. As far as there was one more: identity gaming auditors, incubators, bridges. Okay, that's a good one. Research partners, and that's about it. So and ZK partners. You can see we have BNB Chain, and many others like OP Optimism. We talked about that already. That's part of their tech stack, and so on. So there's a lot happening here. So feel free to go through their network, their whole ecosystem. Again, there's a lot. Celestia, you saw there as a partner, relationship, and so on. So pretty good. Let's move on. That's the ecosystem. Now, if we go back to the foundation, remember we talked about the foundation aspect. They do have a Manta Foundation. This foundation is basically governed by a DAO. Okay, so this is their structure of the DAO. They got different councils and so on, and you qualify by being a holder. Manta Network, Penta Power, governance structure divided into 5 distinct councils, and with Manta token holders, basically they get involved in the decision-making process. Plain and simple, right? That's usually how DAOs work. And again, if you want more detail, you can be a part of it. You just stake, and then you get options for being part of the democratic process here in decision making. Good stuff. Decentralized autonomous organization, decentralizing the decision making, becoming less of a security. Bullish, in my opinion. All right, let's move on. The roadmap, as I mentioned. So this was the first part of the roadmap, and then we were looking at this part of the roadmap, which was on the running document. I feel like this may need a bit of an update because really there's nothing here. July 16 last updated, 2024. Okay, so I think that they've achieved these goals. This is why I feel like it might need an update. But if we go to the current roadmap, which is or the running roadmap, it's quite an interesting approach. It's a blog approach. Fine, you guys know I'm very critical on this blog approach, but they structure the blog or the posts of the blog in a very in a chronological way, where they keep time and the way they list it very clear. So if you want to know what's happening right now, unfortunately, this is going to be one of my criticisms, is that they have nothing in progress. Okay, that's problematic. They should have always something in progress. So either this is outdated, or maybe they don't have nothing in progress, which is not a good look, right? What's happening now? What's buzzing right now with Manta? We want to know. And then they have upcoming. Okay, also a category that should have a little bit of something. Recently launched. Of course, there's a lot happening. Okay, Wallet, now new chain integration, Layer 0 recently launched, Apollo X, guys, there's a quick swap. They're getting there. There's a lot happening, recent information, recent progressions, and then the Q1, new paradigm, rewards claim, prior reminder. Okay, and then you have the old things that basically milestones that have been achieved. I like this approach. I'm okay with blog posts and updates if this is the approach you take. And even better, guys, the way you get access to this roadmap is right on the main website. You don't have to dig. You don't have to do Google searches and start going on websites or Discords and Telegrams. It's right here. You click and it takes you straight to that roadmap, that's the clarity that I need to get fundamentally bullish. Okay, so that's what I appreciate. Let's close that tab so we don't have too many going on. Back to this. Now, let's talk about the team, because nowhere on the website was I clearly directed to getting some information about the team. Now, if you do see any links, if you do see anything, feel free to share them in the description below, in the comment section below, and or join my Discord and share. But ultimately, what I was able to find was that there are some major players. Okay, there are some major players into the game, and on this website we can see that we have Victor G. Sorry for butchering names. And Kenny Lee, I think he's the most vocal or the most out there, in the public. And Shumo Chu, co-founder. Now, are they doxxed? Are they undoxxed? I would say that they're doxxed, but they're not doxxed in a very clean way. I would have loved to see these faces and these, titles right on the website, at the bottom somewhere, or on the about page or something like that, and have these a little bit readily available. Okay, because then we have to rely on third party, and I'd rather these descriptions come from the primary source, and in addition to that, to have LinkedIn profile. So we can begin by looking at Kenny Lee. I think he's the main face, I could say, because I see a lot of YouTube videos and him speaking, which is great, so that you can kind of get to know him. Now, his LinkedIn is not really active or really filled in to the fullest, but we can see he's the co-founder of P0X Labs, which is a part of the Manta parent company. Basically, I think it's the parent company here, so that could be a good thing. He's MIT volunteer here and there. He's got lots of experience, awards, and so on. So he's the computer science individual behind this the project. I guess he's the blockchain enthusiast, right? So that's what I can get from this. I would have loved to see a little bit more detail here, but unfortunately, no. I correct myself. I think he's the business individual here. I think he's the business individual because he's got the Masters of Business Administration. I'm trying to piece all this together, which is still very necessary, guys. We can't negate it. Although we talk about tech all the time, crypto is very business driven. We know that the marriage between business and tech is definitely what crypto is. So, correct me there. He does seem to be the brains behind the business development process. Now, to go on forward, Kenny Lee, on this website, I was able to get a little bit more. Primary co-founder, POX Labs. Okay, he's got some links here as far as his investments. I don't know how that's relevant, but sure, virtual labs here and there. I don't know if we trust this website, but this website was able to give me a little bit of information about related hubs where he's where he relates. We do have the MIT thing going on, and so on and so forth. So that's pretty good. Now, if we go on forward, we have Shumo Chu. Now, this, I believe, is the individuals that's behind the tech. Okay, and the reason being, it's going to be very clear in a second. He's full time at Nebra Labs. That's a little bit concerning. He's a co-founder also of POX Labs, which is okay, but how can he be full-time here and still give us his all into here, and full-time also as a professor, and so on. So I do kind of like the full-time and then also the full-time here is a little bit concerning to me, because we want him to, or we question how much effort or how much focus does he have on Manta, which is the P0X Labs, right? And then he's also was a team member, a smart contract runtime and formal verification system researcher for Algorand. That's good. PhD student, University of Washington. And if you look at his credentials, he has a PhD in computer science, guys. He's where it's at. Software engineer. This is where it's at. So he is the brains behind the tech, and we got somebody behind the brains of the business, guys. That's a match made in heaven, in my opinion. That's really, really bullish for me. And then Victor G, unfortunately, there's not much. Like, he doesn't, his Discord, his LinkedIn is not active, right? It's a broken link on wherever I was able to find, and I'm not really getting anywhere what he's bringing to the table. Like, I'm not saying he doesn't bring anything. I'm just saying I don't know what it is, right? I would love to know, like, what he's bringing to the table. Is it capital? Is it computer science? Is it business? What is it? Now, I do see an MBA, which is business, Peking University. I believe that's a Chinese university. I'm not sure, but don't quote me on that. But nonetheless, he looks solid, but I would have loved to know a little bit more about who he is. A LinkedIn account goes a long way, guys. Definitely. So far we've done pretty good on this deep dive. We've seen a lot. We kind of get the gist of what is being presented to us here. It's a typical layer one with many attributes that could make us bullish. I see the ZK, the privacy. I see the EVM compatibility with the dual system. I see a growing ecosystem. I see a team that, you know, provides us some security as to who they are and what they bring to the table, and a lot of good stuff here, right? Definitely. All right, guys, you guys know that I release a infographic for you guys. I'm going to post this on all the socials, so stay tuned. It's going to be available on X, on YouTube, on all my platforms, so on the Discord, so go check it out. Let's do a quick summary, okay? Overall, what is it? Okay, so we know it's a decent project at layer one, but some of the things that we can, you know, look at are, for example, ecosystem. Many decentralized applications. We have to be able to do some research on each one independently, because although the ecosystem is growing, we do know that the implementation of the blockchain itself is one thing, and then the way they basically create their application and the overall utility of the application is another. So we want to see exactly, like, for example, if it is going to be an NFT platform, you know, how are the NFTs, the JPEGs or whatever, the assets being stored? Where are they being stored? And this is a common example that I give, because it's a very easy example for the retail investor to understand. For an NFT, it could be a JPEG. Where are those JPEGs being stored? And if it's not in a decentralized infrastructure, it basically enhances the centralization of the application. So we got to understand that although I'm giving this a 10 out of 10 because of the native ecosystem that we see as a layer one or even as a layer two, we have to understand that the applications themselves have to be built in a decentralized Web3 way. Okay, so make sure you do that research independently. Utility, Manta Pacific and Manta Atlantic. I did my best to try to get, you know, the gist of all of it. Guys, feel free to, you know, obviously do more research there. I feel like the team could improve the clarity on some of this, particularly with the Manta Pacific utility, but still gas savings. I felt that what they were alluding to was revenue share, and I would have loved to ask these more questions and more details, but no one responds really. Builders get access to a market, and that's great. Of course, if you're a holder, you can get involved and participate in a marketplace. And then for the Manta Atlantic, you get reduced fees, medium of exchange, governance, and staking. And I believe that the governance is both ways. You can be able to basically get into that DAO system for both Pacific and Atlantic. Okay, so that's pretty good. I give it 9 out of 10, but I would like a little bit more clarity and the language. You know, simmer down with the language so that everybody can understand, and it just makes it a lot more clear. Okay, so roadmap, great approach to the roadmap. I like the approach. It's one of the most it's an approach that I haven't seen yet, but I like it because it marries the both worlds of the blogging system that a lot of companies, a lot of projects rely on, which is very unprofessional because it's on some random blog who knows where, and it's hard to find, but at least they put the blog in a very chronological system where you can easily get onto what they're working on and still get the benefits of the details that a blog post could offer. So it's almost like a working roadmap with a blog, and I kind of like it. My only problem is that, you know, it seems to need an update. And the reason being is that they have nothing in progress on the roadmap. So what does that mean? They're on vacation, or what is it? What does that mean? I'm not trying to be, negative here, but it's the reality. If there's nothing in progress on the roadmaps, that's a bit of an issue. There should be something there, or alluding to that the next phase is around the corner. Now I know there's an airdrop for the I forget what it's called at the current moment, but I know there's an airdrop coming around. That should be there, I guess. I shouldn't be guessing here, right? It should be clear. So that's that roadmap approach, and the way they're communicating is 10 out of 10. But their actual roadmap itself, what they are communicating, I think there needs an update or something there. The team. Founder Kenny, linked and doxed. He's the business dude, which is good. Shumochu, computer science. And like I mentioned, match made in heaven. I think that's super, super bullish. Victor G, although he does have an MBA, that's a good thing, but I would like to know more and what he's bringing to the table. Is he just another business dude, which would be good? Of course, marketing and all of that is, and that's something that I'm going to talk about with the socials. That's very necessary. So because of that, I'm going to say, although they're close to perfect, and also, maybe who are their other champions on the team? Like, are there other individuals that are right behind, the founders that are really champion, doing a lot of good work? I think they deserve a bit of the spotlight as well. Of course, a lot of people want to be undoxed at the current moment, but it definitely provides a lot of bullishness when you have a strong team altogether. So nonetheless, 9 out of 10, because I'm going to put a bit of pressure here. I want to know what Victor does, and I would like to see, other champions of the team. Who's, basically the team member of the month right now. Socials, guys, not bad. Okay, not bad. They got some followers, no doubt. They got some followers. My issue is that their followers are coming down at a fast rate, right? They're losing about 5.8 thousand followers in comparison to the previous 30 days. So they're down 234% in comparison to the last 30 days. Now, we can attribute this downfall, this pullback, based on the fact that the market in general is pulling back as far as sentiment, and finally got a bit of interest in the last 48 hours. But it's been a rough summer, and it could be that this is what they're dealing with. And the reason why I'm saying that we need to kind of consider that is because if you look at what they have been doing, their posts, 392 X posts for the last 30 days is a lot. And not only that, they're up 14.6%. So that means that they're pumping out, communication. They're there actively on X. Where I think that they don't do a good job is that their community building is not really strong. And although as a social platform, X is, top tier, that's where I think all projects need to be. I am noticing that in order to create community, which is also super important, we need to get on other platforms such as Discord, Telegram, and so on, right? This is something very, very important. So I'm going to give it 6 out of 10 because my experience on the Discord wasn't the greatest because there's not enough action happening there. And I feel like from a business perspective, from a marketing perspective, they need to have a communication, someone that's in there, that is a team member that goes in there every so often and definitely engages, right? Because that shows direct connection to the grassroots, which is the people, the retail investor, okay? Moderators are not enough, okay? We need someone that's up there. Tokenomics, 8 out of 10. Clear emission investing schedule, guys, that's great, especially that we know that there's a good amount of tokens that are attributed or distributed to early stakeholders. We need that clarity as far as how they're going to be getting those tokens and how the current holders are going to be protected over time as those tokens enter into circulation. So good stuff there. New unlocks begin in about 2025, the new year, we can see, but I don't think they're going to sell, because based on the cycle, I think that they're going to hold on to see what the bull market brings. If the bull market keeps on going up, they're going to hold. But guess what, guys? They're going to be taking profits. There's no way that an early investor, an early stakeholder that took a lot of risk is not going to walk away with bags full of gains. Okay, just keep that in mind. I personally don't think that any project that came out in this current phase, and especially with tokens being released during, the potential bull run, what we really want to do is take some profit at the top. Okay, make sure that you start scaling out, because then we can buy at lower levels again, because this is a new project generally. Ecosystem fund, I appreciate it. Because from a developer perspective, we want the ecosystem to get the funding. We want the ecosystem, the back end, the foundation of the project needs to be sustainable, and it needs to be grown from the bottom up. And if you can have a strong ecosystem with great applications that embrace Web3, right? We're going to see utility for the token and demand for the token, and it's just a cycle. Okay, so I appreciate that. I give it 8 out of 10. I still feel like there's a little bit of an issue here and there with regards to the centralization of the tokens. 50% of them are early stakeholders, but everything else is okay. The unlocks are a little bit scary. I feel that a little bit more clarity, but that goes back to the utility, but still tokenomics are decent. Partnerships, again, Are these partnerships or these relationships? I feel like I'm going to change that from partnerships to relationships, because reality is Celestia a partner? Is Polygon a partner? Is OP really a partner? I feel like if a project is going to use somebody else's tech stack, and especially if it's an open source one, you don't need permission, you don't need a partnership, you don't need an agreement, you don't need anything, right? So for example, if I build a project on Ethereum, am I a partner of Ethereum? If I use Polygon to deploy a layer 1, do I need Polygon's permission? Polkadot's permission? Am I a partner of Polkadot? Not really. So I feel like these are great relationships, these are great ways to create connections and so on. So that's a good thing, but it's more of a relationship than a partnership in my book. But we have VCs, and these VCs are definitely considered partners. Why? Because they're silent partners for the most part, that all they do is provide capital. And I've seen a lot of VCs listed in the the partnership or ecosystem. Whenever you see the word capital and things like that, we know that VCs are involved. The good news is that they don't have that many tokens, but it may be enough to see VCs take profit. So we got to be quick on the profit taking here, guys. Not that I'm bearish on the actual projects, that I know that in the early phases of a new project, VCs are here to give them the liquidity they need to get the project going. But as soon as they can take profit, guys, they will. And they will use you as exit liquidity, because that's part of their business, is to put in capital and from a great risk to reward scenario, and as soon as things get risky, they take profit to de-risk. And that's the way we should be thinking as well. That's what smart money does, and that's what we need to be doing also. Exchanges, guys, great listings, right? Gate, Altcoin, Mexi, Binance, don't knock it, Binance. We have BingX, BitGet, all the major ones that we can think of, except Coinbase. So that's the only reason why I'm giving it 9 out of 10 is Coinbase. But still, Binance is a beast. We know that. And the relationship with Binance is solid. So I'm giving that a 10. But you can also consider this, a weakness as well, right? We got liquidity. That's great. We got exchange. We can easily get in and out of the markets. But usually we wait for exchange listings to bring in volume and interest, but it already happened. All we're waiting on for is Coinbase. So just consider that. One more listing, and that hype based on exchange listing is pretty much done. So is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I think it's a bit of both. I ultimately, as a trader, prefer liquidity, because I'm not looking for hype for exchanges. Those are temporary pumps, and then they usually dump back down. But the liquidity aspect of things and being able to basically get on multiple order books across the market is very, very healthy. You know that you want to be able to take profits at a certain zone. You want to have that liquidity available to you on many exchanges. So that's a good thing. All right, guys, let's jump right into some of the details. The market cap is, $290 million. It's a small cap altcoin still. It's maybe considered a mid, but still small, guys. It's still a lot of potential here. 78 cents more or less. Manta is the ticker, of course. Trading volume, it's 5%. I like a little bit more of trading volume, but still not bad. I like about 10%, but it's okay. 5% is still decent. We know that the market has been a bit stale in the last little while, so we got to apply context as well. We know that the circulating supply is only 37%. We already talked about, the vesting schedule. Tokens are going to be entering in the market in a little while, so we're going to see more of the circulation increase up to 1 billion tokens. That's the max supply. So overall, we're doing pretty good here with Manta. The tokenomics were good. Everything was pretty good. Let's take a look at some of these details with regards to the verdict. My final verdict is one that basically I'm keeping in mind that everything was very clear, guys. Everything was super clear, to the point that I was able to create this deep dive without much ambiguity. It was a privacy narrative, EVM compatible, modular, cross-chain, L1, L2 capabilities, and ultimately a decent protocol, okay, backed by a decent protocol. Explanation of Manta Pacific utility needs to be a little bit more clear. That's what I felt. I felt like, okay, what's the reason for this dual chain system? And it can be confusing for newcomers, but if you take it for face value, it's quite clear. But ultimately, I think a bit more emphasis on a reason of having two. Why is that necessary? Discord needs a team presence. altcoins 100%, especially with the fact that their Telegram is an announcement only platform. Discord needs a team presence. It's not enough to have moderators and basically individuals that are part of the community that are way up there. It's great, I get it, but you need to have a team presence every once in a while, and it just shows solidarity. It shows good faith. It shows good marketing, and it shows that the team really does appreciate grassroots marketing at the end of the day. So maybe somebody needs to be allocated there from the team that has some decision making ability to make good connections with the community and so far. So another thing that I want to talk about is the Calamari network. Something that we have been experienced with other blockchains, and blockchains sometimes produce other networks, other blockchains as a test one, where you can kind of like use it as a sandbox. You deploy. It has a token. It has everything very similar to the mainnet. Let's call it mainnet, but it's just meant to be like a canary network. Whereas you just want to test it out to see if your application could survive, and if your decentralized application can survive on Calamari network, that means that it will survive on the Manta network. So think about it as almost like a testnet or a sandbox where developers can deploy and kind of play around and make sure everything works before they go to mainnet. Guys, there's other blockchains. I'm not going to mention them because this video is all about Manta, but there are other blockchains that do the very similar thing. Okay, guys, so my overall verdict also includes a target. I'm keeping this target very loose in the sense that, look, if he catches up to Matic as a layer 2, okay, because it also has its layer 1, and we can say, well, what about if it catches up to Ethereum or surpasses Ethereum? Of course, but we can also be very modest and say, look, even if it does a 10x, that's great. Even if it does a 20x, that's still great. In my opinion, that would be the top of the scale. But let's say it does a 16x. Let's say it does there. I think at that level, we should start, thinking about that we've done well. And ultimately, we might start focusing on a bit of an exit strategy to de-risk, take some profit, and so on and so forth. Now, of course, we're going to rely on charts to actually see where there's indications where the market starts to get frothy, where the market starts to show weakness, when you can see that the sellers are outpacing or outperforming the buyers and the supply and demand of the overall tokens, and then we can start making more concrete decisions. But as of now, guys, I can see it easily making between a 10 to 20x and hitting maybe about $13 more or less. I don't see a reason why not. But of course, not financial advice. I don't have a crystal ball to tell you exactly where it's going, but based on what I see here, I don't see why it can't reach there. And of course, once it gets there, we'll definitely come up with some sort of strategy and plan. I give it an 8 out of 10. Obviously, there's a little bit of work. It's very rare that I see projects get 10 out of 10 because no project is perfect. There's always room for improvement. All right, guys, I know you're here to talk about charts as well, so let's get right into some of this chart action. Let's see the price. Like, the price has been doing pretty bad, but we cannot say that it's exclusive to Manta. Manta at the end of the day has been enduring a retracement throughout the market for the last little while. The timing of which it got released also affects the way it looks, and ultimately, we are reaching a level where we should expect some altcoins, including Manta, recover and do well given the altcoin season and given the fact that we're in a bull run. Guys, let's talk about this in a little bit more detail. Now, ultimately, this is a descending wedge. This type of structure has a bullish bias for a breakout. And this is the time to pay attention. Why? Because it's a now or never type of thing. Maybe not never, but it's a now or we're coming down type of scenario. And the reason why I say this is because we already, broke through the apex of this descending wedge. And the wedge right here got close to the major consolidation point, and it kind of broke trend. Kind of, because it's still making a lower low, and then it still made a lower, not a lower high, but a double top. And this is where we've been focusing on. We actually been focusing on Manta earlier on, and I said, ultimately what I want is structure. And shoulder, head, where's the right shoulder? No structure. Very little structure. In fact, we came down to give us a confirmation and no confirmation to be had. In fact, we went down for a lower low. And here again, shoulder, maybe shoulder. We're trying to, piece together some data, and we can see double top. We saw double top here, double top, lower low. Do we come down for a right shoulder or a double bottom at least? No, we come down for a lower low. So we're having a hard time building a bullish structure. However, guys, the way things are looking right here, particularly with the fact that it broke the trend, and the fact is that this right here is starting to get me a little bit interested, given that we're seeing the market wake up, and the cycle within the market is one of which where we should see altcoins wake up. Now, if we look at the oscillators, we've seen Manta be very oversold for a good while. Oversold, 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 and we do see the overall trend slowly getting moving to the upside. Each expansion is slowly getting smaller and smaller, which is an indication to me that the bears are bit by bit losing their strength and their ability to make those lower lows. However, the price is still making lower lows. Guys, that is class A bullish divergence on this entire structure from here to here. So it's been developed. It is in development where we should see the follow through to the upside eventually, right? We should exit the bottom half of the oscillator here on the momentum oscillator, where we start to get in the bullish control zone. We also have a scenario where we see the momentum showing us divergences. Let me zoom in here to show you what I mean. If you look at the expansions in the background, the red expansions, every time we come down, we've been making lower lows, but then all of a sudden we do see it trending to the upside, that each expansion to the downside is getting weaker and weaker as we are making lower lows. Class A bullish divergence. And if you look at the momentum, the purple line, it's the same thing. It's not as exaggerated, it's not as strong, but if you zoom in, you can see that this low is higher than this low by a little bit. And if you want to, be modest and say, okay, it's a double bottom, or it isn't, obviously, but you can see slightly. But if you want to consider it, it's still a class C bullish divergence. It is still divergence, not making another lower low as the price is making lower low. So we have to understand that the oscillators, both momentum and trend, are giving us signals that we could be looking for a bit of relief and start, instead of rolling to the downside and continuing this, we might break to the upside and get overbought finally. Now, I do see the volatility overbought already right up here. Now, is the volatility going to come down and get oversold, perhaps get down to this level, and then go for its impulsive move? Just keep in mind that the volatility goes up and down very quickly. It can take a couple of days to just come down, and then all of a sudden we go for another impulsive move. And in addition to that, you can also expect the volatility maybe even to stay up here for a little bit longer and get the momentum overbought. Look at the purple line. The purple line, has to get overbought. Above the 70% mark is where we get the impulsive move. At any moment that happens, and we'll get the major impulsive, where we're going to start to see a green expansion. We've been getting red expansions, red expansion, red expansion. What about a green one? When do we get the green one, guys? I think it's about time, statistically speaking, that we start gearing up for a green expansion to the upside. So this is what I'm looking at. Now, if we kind of keep that all in mind, let's get rid of the oscillators. Keep this all in mind. We can see that ultimately, we are looking for this divergence, making lower lows still here. You can see that while we're making higher lows on everything, but we need to break above a dollar. Let's be a little accurate here, maybe $1.11, $1.10. We need to break above this white line, and the reason being is that's the structure that we need to break. We need a change of character. We have a shoulder, maybe now a head, a nice rounded bottom, and maybe another shoulder would be fine. Like if we do something like this, we could even break out for another higher high, back test and continue, or we come up here, get rejected, make a right shoulder, and then break out, and then you start looking at head and shoulders formations, right? We start to see cup and handles. You start to see good structures that we can rely on that, insinuate breakout, right? Something like that. So we have to wait a little bit. Now, if you are bullish on the current structure and the fact that we're getting divergence, keep in mind that we're still making lower lows and lower highs. However, we could still deploy a bit of capital here. Position size matters. And in this case, if you buy a little bit, you know that if we make a lower low, you want to get out. You want to get out at 50. If we come down through this with volume and you see the market looking like trash, you want to get out and expect a lower low. Like we done here. Exactly. Looks very similar, right? Got a bit of relief, got to the double top, got rejected, made a lower low. What about if we come up here, get to the double top, get rejected, and make a lower low? The same thing. What about? You want to protect yourself. So you can look at from a risk to reward ratio opportunity. Big picture, it's pretty healthy. If you think about it, the actual target of a wedge, let me get some arrows in here so I can show you my target. The target of a wedge, a descending wedge, is the base of the wedge. So we should come up to this level once again. And this would be a great de-risking opportunity, because ultimately, if your average entry is right around here and you get to this level, you're up 360%, 330%. Crazy gains for sure. But in the short term, if you start building a position right now, be prepared to endure. Right? Because we could still produce structure. Like I'm saying, we could still produce structure. Who knows what happens into this level? Who knows if we even come down and do one of the bigger inverse head and shoulders? We don't know what happens. All I know is if we break below 57 cents, guys, be prepared for a lower low and continuation of the trend. I still feel, based on what we see in the market, the timing of the market, September's around the corner. The fall is usually when we get more capital, more investors back in, based on the halving and the cycle, based on the altcoin season theory, based on Bitcoin dominance. We should see the market wake up. And if there was anywhere where you're willing to take a bit of risk, it is now. Guys, you've been preparing for a bull run for multiple years. Now's the time to shine. Now's the time to get the market going. When else are you going to take risk? Take a bit of risk, DCA, buy a little bit here. If it makes another double bottom, buy a little bit more. If it goes up a little bit, sure, as the breakout happens, buy a little bit more. If it gets back tested, buy a little bit more. And you can accumulate into this level as long as we are above 50. Let's get a little accurate here, 57 cents. Other than that, guys, this could be the reversal pattern that we're looking for, and I would be building spot positions for sure. Leverage positions, take it easy, go on lower time frames, and make sure you keep your risk management in check. Guys, if I've offered you any value in this deep dive video, do the channel a massive favor, slap the like button. Obviously the support is greatly appreciated. If you want to join the Discord is where it's at. Lots of good alpha, trade setups, fundamentals, and learning material. It's absolutely free. And if you want to vote on the next deep dive, join the Discord. There's a channel there where you can make requests on my deep dives, and in addition to that, we vote on the next deep dive that I do. I do release them once a week, so feel free to be a part of it. Guys, we're trying to do our best to navigate these markets and find the best of the best so we can put our capital to work in the best way possible. Guys, take care. Have a good one. See you tonight, 8 p.m. EST. And don't forget, buy the dip.